Elektrik direğine çıktı, direği patladı.
Песочница уже не в бассейне. Все, первый этаж. До свидания.
Еще больше можно.
Жесть. Просто.
Ты видишь, что мне?
Граната сломала! Полиция! Первый этаж затопило! Первый этаж затопило. Пришли с этой пятый.
Governor Wes Moore is slamming the Trump administration's decision to deny FEMA funding to his state. So this is in response to devastating flooding back in May. The governor had asked the federal government for millions of dollars to rebuild severely impacted roads, bridges, and also buildings in 2 counties.
I told the Trump administration directly that I thought this decision was petty, that it was partisan, and that there was no basis for it. It is unprecedented for a governor of Maryland to be able to put in for emergency disaster federal relief, especially when we not just hit the criteria, we exceed the criteria.
A FEMA spokesperson telling CNN when we had asked about this that it worked closely with Maryland officials to evaluate the request for aid, noting, quote, this decision, just like all disaster requests, was based on policy, not politics. Joining me now, the mayor of one of those Maryland towns hit very hard by this historic flooding is Judy Hamilton, joining us from Westernport. Madam Mayor, it's good to have you with us this morning. I see your town was hit hard. I mean, there was clear devastation in so many areas of the town. What is your understanding of why this FEMA request was denied? Was it policy or was it politics?
We really wasn't given a clear understanding. We are hoping it was not politics. During emergency disasters, politics should not play a part in it, regardless of what party you're associated with. We're very confused as to why it was not approved. We were hopeful, but that unfortunately we are going to fight and do the appeal process.
We mentioned, some of the things that the governor had put in terms of that request. I mean, this is directly what you saw in Westernport. We're talking about roads that are damaged, that were taken out. I know that a number of residents had severe damage. They are trying to get hot water heaters replaced. They're trying to get the damage in their homes and businesses fixed. Where does all of that stand, given that these FEMA funds are not going to be coming through, at least as of now?
We have one road that is currently closed down without those FEMA funds. We're looking at a long period of time before it can be repaired. The town just doesn't have the income to do that. That road is a main road that is used by approximately 8 to 10 first responders to respond to emergency calls. Without the use of that road, they have to go a different route, which will add time onto the emergency response. So that is, that is a concern of the town. The bigger concern is our residents. Most of these residents lost their furnaces. We've been working with Department of Social Service, County United Way, and several agencies that have made wonderful donations to supply appliances and hot water tanks. But the greatest concern right now is winter is approaching, and these homes are going to be without heat.
Hey, shalom, shalom. First and foremost, I'm going to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Racha HaKodash. Double honors to the elders, apostles, and bishops at Great Millstone who rule well. Peace, love, and safety to the hopeful elect doing this work. Much love to the scattered elect and to the few sincere women that subscribe to the true doctrine. It's the brother Yokal Amath with the Great Millstone Camp, the branch out here in Omaha, Nebraska, coming back with another lesson, Lord willing, to feed and to edify the lost sheep of the nation of Israel through the Holy Spirit. Racha HaKodash, and the Israelites consist of the so-called Negroes, so-called Hispanics, and so-called Native Americans by the seed of your father, no matter what you may look like. And just want to, give a little update on some things that I went into today. Off the hills of this mega earthquake that happened off the east coast of Russia, which was an 8.8 magnitude earthquake, and it caused tsunami warnings, for the west coast of Babylon, be in California, even the islands such as Hawaii and Alaska, and even Mexico, I believe, and based off of what the news is saying, this type of earthquake hasn't happened in, north of 14 years, so this is a major earthquake, and this prompted me to kind of look into a couple of things concerning, how these tsunamis really be happening, and it's really just ultimately it's the Lord, we have to first and foremost give credit unto Yahweh Shai Shai, because he causes these things to happen, whether it be good or whether it be evil. Okay, nothing moves without his say so. Even like the gospel says that a sparrow doesn't even die pretty much without the Lord say so. Okay. But just know how these plates, they move. One plate under the ocean goes up under another, submerges under another, until the one on top collapses, and it causes a great wave. Right, and the closer it gets to shore, the bigger the wave becomes. So I do want to touch on this article concerning that. As far as the waters that rushed on the west coast in California, and it caused a lot of damage. As far as casualties, there were none reported that I've seen, but it did cause a lot of damage to a lot of buildings and certain little businesses on the coast. But this type of stuff is of course it's devastating. Like I said, I haven't seen anything about any casualties, but this is the Lord working. Whether it's Esau, fucking around with this HARP system or whatever the case, ultimately the Lord is behind these works. Just, and another thing I want to touch on, I may even put the clips at the beginning of this post-production, but also in Maryland, there was a mass flooding in Maryland, like the West Point of Maryland, and once again, like I said, it's the Lord. But just when I was looking into it, it was showing how they had the mayor, in an outrage. The mayor of Maryland was in an outrage because he said that they tried to get help from FEMA, because of this flooding, and they were denied. And from the statement that what appears to be a Jake, the mayor of Maryland, says that pretty much Trump had that denied because they didn't vote for him. which is petty. There's a few sources that do say the same thing, but nonetheless, this caused a lot of damage as well, just as well as that the tsunami that hit the west coast of California, which I'm going to briefly touch into this article. And Lord willing, bring a scripture or two out, and that'll be the lesson. All right. So let's start off with this article. And it's from the LA Times. Okay. All right. So this is an article from the LA Times. And it is dated, or it was published July 29, 2025, which was a couple of days ago. Today is July 31st, and it says it was updated as of yesterday. It says the title of this article is "Modest Tsunami Waves Arrive on California Coast, Damaging Crescent City Dock." So it didn't do a lot of damage. It was modest. It was very subtle, but it still it still had the damage that came with it. But let's get into it. Right? It says, after modest tsunami waves arrived in California following a powerful earthquake in Russia, damaging a dock in Crescent City, advisories were downgraded and canceled for the majority of the state. It says, we're a very resilient harbor. Crescent City Harbor Master Mike Raidmaker said during a news briefing Wednesday, "In this case, we mostly dodged a bullet. We're going to have tens of thousands of dollars of damage to each dock, but it worked as intended." So, no, I recant that statement that I made. It doesn't mention any businesses, but the docks were damaged. Okay, so no, Salakia for that. So there were docks that were damaged, and it says it was a sacrificial part of the overall interface and design, and largely protected the other docks. We're going to be able to continue with business as usual. Fortunately, the highest tsunami waves reported on California shores peak at 4 feet in the Crescent City, about 20 miles from the Oregon border, while the highest waves in the U.S. were 5.7 feet in Kahului, Hawaii. Now, the thing about it, as it says, it will cost tens of thousands of dollars to pretty much to repair these docks. Now, there was a video that I came across and was kind of just doing some studies on tsunamis. So as I said, it was only a 4-foot tsunami, that hit the coast, which doesn't sound bad. The average individual in height is about 5 feet, like 5'8", 5'9". So it doesn't seem bad, but it's the force that the tsunami comes with. As I was looking into the tectonic plates under the ocean, you have a tectonic plate that goes pretty much it. All right. It says just before 11 a.m., the tsunami advisory area on the West Coast has shrunk to just the Del Norte County coastline and the shoreline of Santa Barbara and St. Louis as Obispo counties. The tsunami advisory was canceled for the rest of California coast because it wasn't that big of a tsunami, but it caused damage. And this is ultimately just the Lord working. All right. So it's a pretty decent article. I'll post it, but this is what happened. And there was a clip that I seen, that I shared with brothers earlier, which it showed. It was a scary, though the waves weren't high, that was a scary amount of water to be rushing in. If you were walking down the street or driving down the street, you were more than likely you're going to be swiped. You were going to be knocked over. You was going to go home with a story. All right. But this is just, things like this, this is the tip of the iceberg for things that the Lord is about to do, because there are much greater sorrows and things coming than these tsunamis. We had major destruction on the way. All right. We have grave famine on the way. We have different these, and which is all these things are part of prophecy. All right, as the scripture says, it speaks about the raging waves. Right, let's see if I can get that. I believe it's in Psalms. Let's look it up. Yep, this is the book of Psalms. Excuse me, Psalms chapter 89 and verse 9. It says, "Thou rulest the raging of the sea. When the waves thereof arise, thou stillest them." And the NLT says, "You rule the oceans, you subdue their storm-tossed waves." And the tsunami is exactly that. All right, is a storm-tossed wave. Okay, it's a so-called, how they say so-called natural disaster, but it's really a disaster from the Lord. All right. Now there was a video, which Lord's willing, I will post this video as well, post production. But I gotta pull this article up. All right, so this is the article, and I want to correct my statement. I said the mayor of Maryland was actually the governor, right? Not the mayor of Maryland, but the governor of Maryland. All right. So this is dated from the Washington Post as of July 27, 2025. It says, "Denied federal flood relief. A Maryland town is left on its own." And I looked up a article earlier. Let's see if I can find that real quick, where it spoke of, there's a statement that Trump made, as far as, well, let's just get it, because I forget exactly what it was stating. But no, Trump pretty much left them on their own. He says they will have to do better. Let's see. Not do better, but do more, right? And let's see what that was alluding to. Right. So this was and I'm gonna get back to the other article, but this is from stateline.org, and this is dated April 25th of 2025. It says, "Trump denies disaster aid, tells states to do more. White House says state must have an appetite to own the problem." It just shows you how they don't give a damn about what you're going through. They don't. Trump don't give a damn, man. Right? But it says, because I just want to get into it. Yep, this is just the second paragraph of this article. And this, once again, this is stateline.org. It says, under President Donald Trump, the Federal Emergency Management Agency has denied federal assistance for tornadoes in Arkansas, flooding in West Virginia, and a windstorm in Washington state. It also has refused North Carolina's request for extended relief funding in the aftermath of Hurricane Helene, right? And that was his statement. You got to own up. Pretty much what it says. The White House says states must have an appetite to own the problem. So pretty much you deal with it. We're not coming to help you. All right. So this is the same thing that's kind of going on in Maryland. Right? Now, going back to that article, the Washington Post, it says, "Denied federal flood relief, a Maryland town is left on its own." The residents of Western Point, Maryland, overwhelmingly voted for Trump, right? Which I looked into that. The states that voted for Trump, Maryland was one of them. Okay, Maryland was one of those states out of 13 states that I looked up that did not vote for Trump or did not help Trump to win the presidential election. All right. But it says, but after FEMA denied his aid request, the town feels like the president has turned his back on them. Western Point, Maryland, as waters rushed down Church Street, Teresa Bowl hurried to save the antique furniture and knickknacks inside her funeral home her family has owned and operated. What's going on? Her family has owned and operated in Allegheny County, Maryland, for more than a century. A downpour had caused George's Creek, which runs through the middle of town, to surge to flood the streets in the Western Point in an hour. Right? So it was severe flooding that came through there, man, via through heavy rainfall. All right? So in this call, and you see the video, that looks severe, man. You got cars submerged in the water. All right, you got homes up to the first and second level that are damaged, and they're according to the governor, what was stated is there was over $10.8 million exactly what they stated of damage, which should have qualified them for FEMA assistance, and they were denied. Okay. Now, if this was truly the United States, or if the president, Nero Trump, actually did care for the people, it wouldn't matter. He would take care of them. All right. But this is kind of like a run back of what during the time of George Baby Bush. All right. But he flew over New Orleans during the time of Hurricane Katrina. Okay. Or when not him specifically, but they didn't, the aid didn't come for a while, man. So this is the same type of deal. These people that are there in Maryland, they're just left to, they're left on their own, pretty much. All right. But no worries, man. Babylon the Great is about to be destroyed. And Esau is he's not gonna show any empathy, right? He has an agenda to fulfill, which is to ultimately usher in the MOTB system. All right, he's not worried about sending money to Maryland. He's sending money over there to Israel. All right, billions of dollars over there to Israel. Right, and that shows you that like the elder Yashawamba in the GMS Dallas camp, he says it very often, and other brothers say it as well. This place needs new management. All right, because under the guise of Esau Edom, this place is just going to grow more evil and more evil. Okay, but I just want to report that, and Lord willing, this was edifying, and we just got to keep our eyes on things, man. Because the times are about to get worse and worse. All right. So with that being said, I want to give all praise, honor, and glory unto Yahweh, Bahasham Yahweh Shai, Bahasham Rakha HaKodash. Double honor to my elders, apostles, and bishops of the great millstone. Peace, love, and safety is to the elect. Shalom.